Hi, good evening. My name is Taffy Dugan. I'm with South Bay Circles, and this is Mini Talks at the Moot. Tonight, we have the pleasure of speaking to Elder Thea Bristlebroom, who's a Gardnerian third degree and a high priestess. She's been practicing Wicca for over 25 years. She also has a familiarity with eclectic Wicca and heathenry, or Asatru. Past national and Northern California local council memberships officer of the Covenant of the Goddess, which is what we're going to be talking about tonight. And it's a nonprofit organization. It's celebrating its 45th year. She is currently Northern California Local Council co-officer, co-first officer, and governing board representative. She's currently reimagining her life, practicing self-love and random acts of beauty to transform the stress and pain of 2020 into the life that she has always wanted. Oh, that is wonderful. Thank you so much.
Yep. So thank you very much, Taffy, for inviting me and for doing this series. I'm especially pleased to have gone back and looked at the prior presenters, and I'm in very good company. So without any further ado, I'm going to talk a little bit about myself and then introduce the Covenant of the Goddess, talk a little bit about the history just so you can put it in context, and then talk about some recent changes that have been happening in the covenant and why they might be of interest to you. And then I'll take questions. So the first thing is I wanted to let you know that I actually miscounted when I wrote my bio. It's actually closer to 30 years. And I have the pleasure of seeing my initiating high priestess on this call. So that's really nice. The other thing is the time that it took me to get to where I am now, was about 20 years of hard work. And there was a sabbatical in there, about 7 years. But only about 4 years ago did I actually start working with the Covenant of the Goddess. And we're an all volunteer organization. Nobody gets paid. And it actually started here in the San Francisco Bay Area in the spring of 1975. The story goes, I wasn't around then. I was alive then, but I wasn't part of COG then. The story goes that 13 different groups of witches in the San Francisco Bay Area met, and in very short order, were able to come up with the organization structure, and at Samhain, they were incorporated into a nonprofit organization in the state of California. So I'm sure there's a great deal more history. I'm not going to go into too much of that because it's all, it was before my time and I don't have personal knowledge about it. But some of the important things to know about COG is because it originated in the 1970s, mid 1970s, it was set up to be a consensus-based organization with no real hierarchy. And that was important because even though a lot of the groups that joined and formed COG were witches, they didn't all practice the same tradition within our religion, as we phrase it. And so there were a lot of different ways of doing things, and they had to mash those out. And what evolved out of that conversation is really something very enduring and has a lot of qualities that I think are valuable to the pagan community and to witches in general. I hope I am able to communicate that to you now. But people weren't practicing, I'm told, as solitary practitioners as much, or maybe they were, but nobody really knew about it. And so originally the membership was for groups, was for covens, and the coven leaders or circles or groves or whatever terminology that particular tradition used. And therefore it was really a organization of elders in some sense. But from the beginning, there were in fact people who were solitary. They weren't part of a coven, but they were important people in the community, and they were needed, and they were welcomed. But there wasn't a specific membership category for them at first. As time went on, more solitary people, more individual practitioners, if you prefer, did come along, and so we created a membership category for those folks. Another important thing to keep in the back of your mind in terms of context for the early days of COG is the satanic panic that was happening in the early 80s. And most notably here in California, we have the uh, Satanic Temple folks, Anton LaVey, here in the Bay Area. And so San Francisco Bay Area and outside that was kind of this hotbed of activity. Um, a lot of pagans, a lot of different pagan traditions are here in the Bay Area. And so there's a lot of knowledge concentrated. And one of the things that COG members were able to do during that time period was to provide a voice of reason to the police, to the FBI. Some of our members consulted and wrote books that were intended to guide the officials who were investigating these complaints about satanic ritual abuse, horrible, horrible things that of course were not true. I'm not going to go too deeply into that. You can look at the Wikipedia entry if you really want to know. But that was a really important thing, to have a voice that the authorities would call and say, you know, we've got something weird. Can you help us figure out, is this person a member of your religion, or is this person a deranged psycho person who's killing people? You know, we'd like it if they call us. So that was a good thing, to be on good terms and to have a national presence and to be recognized was really important, because not only could people suffer discrimination personally, they could lose their jobs, they could lose their homes, they could lose their kids, they could lose, you know, their livelihood, their ability to support themselves. And it was a very serious time. The other thing that happened in a little bit later than that was the Pentacle Quest. And that was basically a joint effort to get the military to recognize the rights of pagans to be buried with the symbol that represents their religion and their faith. And we, COG, worked with other pagan groups like Circle Sanctuary. They actually did most of the work, but we were partnering with them to help. And COG members wrote letters and so forth. So in the context of the 70s, 80s, and 90s, yes, thank you, Valerie. I realized that I got the wrong words out of my mouth. Anton LaVey's group is the Church of Satan, and it's different from the Satanic Temple folks. Thank you for that clarification. So in this context of, you know, mistrust, and we're a Christian nation, and who are these strange people and all that, it was a really scary time. And so part of the organization's goals were to help ensure that our religion got treated as a religion, and that we got the same rights that other religious groups get. And we've been largely successful with that. One of the things that COG offers is clergy credentials. And one of the reasons for that is because it helps establish legitimacy. And we can go in and do clergy work in hospitals, in hospices, and we can also do interfaith work and outreach, both in military and in prisons with the inmate populations. And these things are not everybody's cup of tea, but they are important things that we try to put in the forefront of folks' minds, because we aren't pagans in isolation. We aren't witches in isolation. We have to interact with the larger world, and for good or for bad, the world is going to interact with us. It's really nice to have an organization like COG to say, I'm a member of that group, and you know, there's history behind it that you can reference if you're in a situation, I don't know, where you need to reference it. Anyways, oddly enough, it took a long time for COG to get a mission statement going. So I'm going to share with y'all the mission statement. We just did this a couple of years ago, and it's kind of exciting. So hopefully you're all seeing my screen here. I talked a little bit about COG already, so I'm not going to go too much into that. And then we talk about the overview of the Covenant of the Goddess and background information on our webpage. One of the important things about our structure and organization is that we operate by consensus. I'm going to come back to that. It's a really important point. And then, gosh, I thought it was on this page. It's not on this page. Never mind. We have a mission statement. I don't know what it is, but I'll show you in a second. The other thing I want to point out is a code of ethics. This is really important when you're talking to people who are not interested at all in our religion. And it's also important to talk to the newer folks that are coming into it. And so we list all these things on our webpage. And you're totally welcome to look at this. This is the public facing webpage, which can be found at cog.org. And I think there is a mission statement up here. Let's see if I can find it. We occasionally put out statements, just so you know. Our most recent statement was about George Floyd's unfortunate and terrible and tragic and can't find the right word, that situation, horrible. But we recently did a mission and vision statements as well as a science statement. So you can come in and look at the things that COG has felt strongly enough about that we decided to put out statements on them. And I do want to read the mission statement because I think it's important. The Covenant of the Goddess envisions a world where all living beings are honored and cherished as manifestations of the sacred. And we, the Covenant of the Goddess, through advocacy, education, interfaith action, and resource sharing, empower witches and Wiccans to protect, strengthen, and enrich our religion, society, and the earth. And that's our public information officer's address. So now you know what we're about and kind of where we're going with things. I wanted to talk a little bit more about what makes COG a unique organization. We have started originally in the San Francisco Bay Area, and so the Northern California Local Council is the first council, but we very quickly expanded. It was the 70s were a good time for that. There was a lot of festivals that were going on, and there was a lot of things that people across the country got to the point of saying, yeah, I really I'm interested in this and I want to do something with it. So, you know, we kind of hit the hot spot right there. So what I'm trying to share with you all now is our local map, sorry, or not a local map, a US map of the places where we have other local councils. And unfortunately, this is kind of diminished over the years. We used to have more, particularly up in the Great Lakes area. And unfortunately, recently Calafia had to fold. They were down to a very small number of people and they just didn't have enough momentum to keep going. But you can see in California, we have a lot. Southern California, Orange County and Touchstone local councils are still going strong, as is Chamisa in New Mexico, and they're actually thinking of splitting. And then Texas. Texas is a big state, and we do have a lot of people down there. I don't know if they're getting close to wanting to split either, but it might happen someday. And then over in Florida, Everglades Moon, and up our northernmost group is Hills and Rivers. We're trying right now to see if we can start a formation of a local council in the Pacific Northwest or possibly in Nevada, but it's a slow process, and so I don't have any news to report on that. So talking about why we're unique, we operate by consensus, and our bylaws, I'm sorry, Taffy, you're shaking your head. Is there a problem?
No, some people might not know what consensus mean. I'm sorry.
Okay, so I was just about to explain that. So consensus is a decision-making process, and almost any other place you go to, except possibly Native American, First Nation peoples, they are used to dealing with a top-down hierarchy, and they do things like vote, in which case, you know, the majority wins. Sometimes it's a 2/3 majority. And so the bylaws have, you know, they have that language in them because we're incorporated in the state of California. You're required to have certain things in your bylaws. And it is a little difficult navigating that language when that's not how you actually operate. So consensus-based decision making is much more complicated, but it results in a much happier group of people, and it results in everyone at least nominally being able to get behind that idea and move it forward. Um, Problems are worked out in advance, or hopefully, you know, hashed out along the way, so that the final thing that everybody agrees to is comprehensive, considers everybody's points of view, has addressed all of the outstanding issues, and, you know, basically people can now all get behind it. That's a complicated process to go through. It can take some time. It also takes a lot of trust. And because witches, number one, have always operated in an atmosphere of not necessarily distrust, but some concern, some risk. Trust is very important. Even if you don't share your actual legal name, even if you don't ever invite anybody to your home, or, you know, even if you take extreme precautions to protect your privacy, ultimately you're trusting people. And so you need to have trust. Number one, that they're going to have the similar values to you, and care about honesty and keeping silent when it's appropriate. And you want to also trust that if there's a problem, that they're going to be there helping you work it out, you know. And consensus is one of the really important ways that we build trust over time. It's not the easiest, but it's, I think, has the best outcomes. That's my personal opinion. One of the problems that we're having as an organization is that we're aging, and we're aging out. So we're losing membership, and it's, you know, become apparent over time that we needed to do something to attract more members. And so we've been, for the last several years, been trying to figure out what that is. A lot of people have discussed opening COG to pagans who are not witches. Right now, to be a member of COG, you have to say, I am a witch. You can be a friend of COG, which is it's not a membership, a new affiliation. Anyone can be a friend of COG. It's for individuals, not groups. And there's no religion requirement on being a friend of COG. But to be a member of COG, you need to be able to say, I am a witch. And it's come up a few times that we would maybe open that up a little larger, maybe invite the druids and the heathens and the, I'm blanking on the name of it, but the African diaspora religions, you know, all of these things. And it's always been defeated. And our group just really wants to be witches only. There's some kind of identity associated with that. But I want to point out that members of COG, even though they all say I am a witch, they don't necessarily practice only witchcraft or only a tradition of magic. There are people who are witches who are also heathens, druids, Celtic Reconstructionists, Egyptian Reconstructionists, you know, all of these things, Nurug members. So we want to experience the diversity of all that is I am a witch, you know, in every possible way of saying that, but we still want people to say that for some reason. That's a key value. But as time has gone on and COG's efforts to make us respectable, if you will, have borne fruit, it's the younger generation no longer really sees a need for an organization of elders. They don't really see a need, I'm told, for covens. And so we're struggling. The recent changes that I wanted to talk about have all been driven by we need to have people joining our group if we want to continue. And it's very bald-faced. It's just the way it is. So one of the things that we looked at was, how is it to become a member? Can we make that easier? Can we open up our membership to other different levels of membership? We decided that we would, but it wouldn't be a membership, i.e. it's not a voting situation, and that's the Friends of Cog. We reduce the amount of hurdles a person has to jump through to become a member. And we tried to make it faster because it takes a little bit of time, which a lot of people don't understand. They're like, I can join the Sierra Club and, give them $20 and I get a bumper sticker. Why can't you guys do that? And again, the answer is trust. Nobody cares if you're in the, I mean, they're not going to break your car windows or follow you home or report you to the police, whatever. It's a little bit more risky, in other words. And then the other things we talked about were how we could change our leadership structure, and some really huge things came out of that. So just for a little bit of context, previously we were governed by a board of directors, because that's the language that you have to use when you're doing a nonprofit organization. And we just called it the national board. And that was officers. That was the first officer, who is equivalent to the executive officer, the treasurer, the membership officer. It was all those people who did all the jobs, kept the organization running. Well, some of those jobs have gotten really heavy and onerous and all of that. And those people really didn't have a lot of time to govern. And so I'm not sure, but I feel like somewhere along the way we maybe lost our momentum, because the people weren't able to focus on governing. They had to focus on doing all these little jobs, or big jobs as it were. So the new thing that we've been doing is we changed our organizing structure. Now we have a governing board with representatives from each of the local covens, or excuse me, each of the local councils, and then 2 more constituencies, because we have what's called the national. You can be a member at a local council level, but if there is no local council in your area, then you can be a member at the national level. So the national covens and the national individual members are the other 2 constituencies. And this governing board, we had a transition year where, as people were selected, they got to watch the old board in action. And now, starting in Samhain, the governing board has been seated, and I am on that board. But it's has no job other than to govern, to lead, to guide us in the direction that we need to go. Also, what happened at the in that last year before the national board changed to being the governing board was we added a new officer position called outreach officer. And so the outreach officer is working very closely with the membership officer and the national public information officer to go and do outreach, to find new members, to help form local councils, and to really, the intent was to travel and meet people face to face. COVID-19 happened, and so we're trying to do other things. We also are utilizing YouTube. We have a YouTube channel. Our purse warden is doing Witches with Wednesdays with Witches. Sorry, I'll get that right one of these days. And one week it's for members only, and the other week it's open to everybody, non-members included. And so I'd welcome you all to join that group if you're interested. We don't really know how this experiment is going to work out. It's kind of scary. It's a little exciting. People are frustrated. We runs the gamut. But those of us on the board, many of us are former officers, either in our local councils or national officers. Many of us have done many different types of jobs in the Covenant. And most of us feel like it's exciting, and we're going to rise to the challenge. So I hope that that's piqued your interest, and I'm happy to answer questions.
That was wonderful. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
If you were talking to a young person, why would they join COG? how would that benefit them?
So we have an interesting little brochure on our webpage called "What Cog Already Does for You." Um, but honestly, I don't want to go to that. What I would do is I'd talk to the person and I would try to find out what they're already doing, and then show them or demonstrate to them in some way that COG can assist them with that. Maybe not immediately, might be a little bit down the road. I'd also share with them some of the reasons why they are now able to be out of the closet, of the broom closet, is because groups like COG led the way. But primarily, I would talk to them about, why are you a witch? You
Mm.
know, and what does being in community with witches get you? Um, I personally have always been in a BTW tradition, British traditional Wicca tradition, which is a hierarchical tradition, and it's mentorship. If people aren't turned off by mentorships, then I might try and talk to them about a community of equals. I'd also try and talk about public festivals, because it's one of the things that, each local council kind of specializes in their own thing. And in Northern California, for some reason, there are a lot of interfaith reps from Northern California. And I would talk to them about, do you have problems with or good friendships with people of other religions? How does that affect you? Have you considered interfaith, and how important that is to what you can do for um, giving yourself the space to practice your religion the way you want to and to be respected. Anyways, I'd
Yeah,
start a dialogue is my short answer.
I like that. So basically, um, you could say that COG or groups like COG have brought legitimacy to paganism. That because of groups like COG, people look at us seriously instead of some loony bat, something that somebody's doing in the corner. Um, I was lucky I got to represent COG for the San Jose, Silicon Valley Interfaith Council um, homeless memorial last week,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and I did that as a member of COG, and that was nice. And the time I've been there before, people treated me. They all the other clergy treated me as an equal. It was absolutely wonderful. Um,
Can I speak to that a little bit too?
yes, please.
One of the other things that happened in the 90s was the Parliament of World's Religions.
Mm.
And that happened in 1993. And one of the reasons it was happening was it had happened once before, about 100 years prior, and had made big changes in the major religions of the world being able to get along with each other. And so a new group of people said, hey, let's do that again. And local COG members here in Northern California and in other places also really thought that that would be fabulous if the pagans could show up. So they really pushed for it, and I may be speaking to some of them now. Um, but what I've been told is that it was a surprise to a lot of the religions to find out that we exist. And in every single parliament of the world's religions, there has been a large pagan presence, and we are respected and validated because of it. And COG did that.
Yay, yay. Um, Now we do have some questions. One is, you had mentioned before that there were used to be more local councils. Um, what do you think happened to them? I mean, what happened? Why aren't they there anymore?
So it's different in different places. There is a certain critical mass that you need to have. Our bylaws say that to form a new local council, you have to have 3 covens or circles or groves or whatever, and they have to be representing at least 2 different traditions. We don't want any one tradition to kind of take over a local council in that one area. That can be bad. But we want to have established groups that are already in communication with each other in a geographical area. We don't specify geographical area, but the other reason why things sometimes fail is they try to encompass too large of an area. There was one up in the Midwest that encompassed 3 separate states, and that was too big, and that was just not going to work. Sometimes people age out. Other times there's really bad personality conflicts that just cannot be dealt with. And sometimes it breaks organizations apart, particularly organizations like ours that are based on relationships and trust. And so if you can't go to somebody and say, I'm having a problem with you, can we step over here and talk about it, because I'd like to resolve it, because I respect you, and and I don't want this to be a problem for either of us. If you can't say that to somebody, sometimes you just can't resolve it. The other thing about local councils is some of them kind of specialize. Everglades Moon, they are amazing. They sponsor a podcast, and it's been going on for years, and it's very high quality. Some other groups do psychic fairs, Southern California, I think, or maybe I don't think it's Touchdown, I think it's Southern California. And then some of them, like Northern California, tends to focus on interfaith. I noticed a comment in the chat about possibly the reason why NCLC doesn't do local ritual type things is because the Bay Area was so blessed to have so many. And I grew up pagan in the South Bay, and so for me, South Bay Circles is where I learned to be a pagan, where I learned about community, and it was incredibly important. So yeah, different things.
Valerie had mentioned that maybe Doreen Valiente was a COG member. How wonderful.
Is that possible?
Yes, she was at one point.
Okay.
I don't know for how long, but I remember being at a NorCal local council meeting at Judy Foster's place in the East Bay years ago. And the topic of her being, the topic of the fact that she was already a member what came up in part of the discussion.
That is.
We've had a lot of notable pagan names.
This would have been about 1981.
Yeah. We've had a lot of notable names as part of COG. And, so many of us have passed on. COG keeps a page on our member side of our website because not everybody was out, and where we list our beloved ancestors.
Yes. If somebody wanted to, like, let's say a friend of mine is, as an example, okay, is considering starting up a charity. Would COG be an organization for pagans? Would COG be an organization that maybe they should talk to? That maybe, because I mean, don't you also support a lot of different projects that people
We do actually. Thank you for mentioning that. I'd like to take this opportunity for a shameless plug. I love these people. I don't have anything to do with them other than that I love them and they're friends of mine that are doing this. But COG has the ability to, when we're paying our tithes, for us to donate money to different groups. And currently, the ones that I'm remembering are the Out-of-Sentence Research Library, which is local here in the Bay Area, has the libraries of 3 or 5 prominent pagans, some of whom have passed on, in its collection and is constantly adding more. it's, I don't know if they've actually been able to open because of COVID, but they were just about to open when that shutdown happened. And they have their their catalog, that's the word, is actually on Library Thing. So you can go and see, is that really interesting book that I can't find anywhere in the Out of Sentence collection? Maybe I can read it. And then also Cherry Hill Seminary, which is not just for pagans, but I believe it's I'm sorry, not just for witches, I believe it's for pagans, but I could be wrong about that. And it's very high caliber, very well respected teachers, and they do provide, I believe, they're working on being an accredited university. So if they haven't been able to do that, they will very shortly be able to actually give degrees. And
Really?
then the third, I'm sorry?
I'm sorry, really?
Yes, really. And then the third thing that I'm blanking on right now, in New Mexico, the Ardentane, I forget what they call it. It's kind of like a sanctuary is the way I think of it. But Ardentane is a pagan teaching center and is the hub of so much that goes on in Albuquerque and surrounding areas. Thank you. Ardentane Retreat. Thank you, Jim. So those are the three that that COG members actively support, and thank you for giving me an opportunity to mention them. But to go back to your original question, there was a group that was trying to put together a pagan credit union. Yes. And they approached us for a letter of support. Mm-hmm. And we were pleased to give that to them. So groups do approach us for that type of thing. We get contacts, almost all of our contacts, with very small exceptions, are from inmates. So we get a lot of can you help me become a witch kind of stuff, which we don't actually do very much of, but that's one of the areas that we're considering starting on a YouTube channel to do sort of Wicca 101, not classes so much, but more how-tos and conversations and crafty things. So I hope our YouTube channel will take off in the future.
That's wonderful. Make certain you give me the link and we can put it along with the description. That is great.
Yeah.
Now, does anyone have any other questions? You did a wonderful job, Thea.
Thank you. That was.
I have a comment.
Sure.
When you were talking about projects, COG was actually one of the original sponsors and organizers of the Parliament of the World Religions in 1993, thus starting it up again after there having been a lapse of about 100 years. We actually were one of the prime movers in that occurring. And the Parliament of World Religions probably would not be going on now had we not taken the initiative to do organizing and sponsorship. It was so, and a lot of people don't know that, but I think that's a very important thing that COG has done.
Yes, very important.
I agree. Thank you, Valerie.
Yes, yes. And the other incredibly important thing that COG has done was they accredited me. Thank you. That's the most important of everything, really. Thank you. I've gotten to perform a couple weddings. And I have another wedding coming up in 2022 now, my sister. So thank you.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Officiate my sister's wedding. So yay.
And I wanted to mention also one of the other changes that we decided to do very recently, so it hasn't really gotten off the ground very much, is we decided to make it a part of our platform, for lack of a better word, that we were going to do military and inmate ministry as a COG thing, rather than just, oh yeah, some of our members also do that. Mm-hmm. So I'm really hopeful that we'll be able to make more of a presence in the military they already have a lot of institutionalized respect because there was already a process for getting a religion to be approved kind of thing. So once we got in, we're in. But it's a whole nother challenge for inmates. And as we know, a lot of people are incarcerated unfairly. Many innocent people have been incarcerated. Just because you're Wiccan or pagan of some sort and you're in the military doesn't, I mean, sorry, you're in prison, you should still be allowed to practice your religion. And so many of us are not. So we think that that advocacy is really where we're going to try and go next, in addition to reaching out to younger folks and people who don't practice in covens.
I like that. I like that. And I also, a friend of mine was looking into joining, and he was worried about maybe the position on trans. And I went right to the website and I read the statement to them, and they were very, very happy that that COG does support LGBTQ and definitely support trans and trans rights.
Absolutely. When you're in a small minority group, you are very sensitive to the slings and arrows of persecution on any front. And so, you know, we've always supported, I don't think we've ever had any question about supporting the right of our clergy to marry people. And so the whole concept around, well, why wouldn't you marry two men or two women or some odd combination of both men and women in multiples? You know, to us, it's no big deal. It's just the rest of the world that has a problem with it.
Oh, totally agree.
Well, at least 1 year we had a trans woman as our national first officer. That was back in the 80s. Now I don't know about since then, because when I had kids, I sort of lost track and fell out of COG for a while. But COG has never questioned the identity of trans people.
Yay! Never. So there's nothing to apologize for. Yay! um, somebody else had asked, would you please spell the teaching center in New Mexico?
Oh yeah, hang on a second. I may actually be able to share a screen with it if you'll give me a moment.
Okay.
I wanted to let you know that we have, let me go up here. Get out of my way. I got all these things up here.
ARDANTANE, I think.
Yeah, let me pull it up because otherwise I'm just not going to be able to get it right. Where is it? Yeah, that's it. Oh, I know why it's on the other side of the thing. Yeah, Amber K is the director, but I want to be able to find how to spell it because I know I'll spell it wrong.
Oh, well, Donald, how do you spell it then?
I believe it's ARDANTANE, Ardantane.
Here we go.
Yes. Yes, you were right, and Valerie was right too. Everyone spelled it the right way. Thank you so much. There, you found it. Okay, so it's definitely there. The research library. Oh, good. And then the other thing, of course, that COG is well known for is Merry Meat.
Yeah, I didn't talk about that, did I? Well, unfortunately, we had to cancel this year's Merry Meet due to the COVID-19. We had already booked a hotel, and the hotel was willing to roll it forward. So we're just going to, move it a year. But our annual meeting of our entire membership happens once a year, and we try to do a festival alongside that called Merry Meet. And when we were able to do this in campgrounds and out in nature, which is, where our hearts long to be, it was a little bit easier to have a festival attached. Nowadays, we have to do it in hotels, and so it's harder. But we still do try to have vendors come so that anyone can come and participate in the festival. And indeed, our meetings are open with some caveats. You need to be known to a member of COG and be able to say, I am a witch. The membership officer vets people who are not members showing up in the room. But, you know, we try to be transparent, for good or for worse. Last Grand Council was all virtual. So if we have to do that again, we can do that again.
Yes, that was nice. I attended that one. Oh, well, wonderful. Well, thank you very, very much. That was a wonderful.
I
Yes,
had a
Donald.
question.
Yes, please go ahead.
Covenant of which goddess?
Very good.
Oh.
Donald, you're excellent questionnaire. Her name is Coventina, and she is known to us because the Romans in England had a habit of finding pools of water and naturally occurring springs and all that good stuff that were already being worshipped at, and sort of saying, oh yeah, we'll cozy up to you and we'll be like, you know, buddies. And then they stamp it with their Roman name of whatever. So we don't really know who this was before it was Coventina, but that's the Roman's name for her. And her site is unique amongst all of the sites that have been found where people worshipped in the British Isles, because in almost all of the other sites, you'll find curse tablets. And these are spells that people were doing to wish harm, you know, may 1,000 fleas and infest your armpits, you know. Coventina was specifically about goodwill, communication, harmony, balance, cooperation, all of these things that are kind of not curse tablets. And so we honor her and we invoke her at every meeting. We don't, you know, necessarily have rituals written up for her, but she is our goddess and we are her children. And it's specifically that quality of being able to get along that we really need sometimes, don't we?
Mm-hmm.
Also, a couple of other questions. One that's probably simple, the other that's a little more complicated. I'll get the simple one out of the way first.
Okay.
Is Covenant of the Goddess primarily women?
You know, we do seem to have a tendency to have a lot of women. Because we don't know all the members of the member covens, I can't say for sure, but we do have a large number of men. And our last three first officers have been men. So yeah, men are definitely well respected in the Covenant of the Goddess.
Seems like paganism in general has a larger female fellowship than a male one.
It can sometimes feel like that.
Also, you talked about reaching out to the younger crowds. Again, can you reiterate what your plan is for that? Because as an organizer with the meetup group, I want to find interested younger people as well. The right people, though, not just any people.
Well, so we specifically created a membership officer role, and that person has been working with our public information officer who manages our web facing pages, and our membership officer to try and make it easier and maybe if we discover a need to have a different membership level for different types of people, to make those things happen faster. But specifically, we're focusing on some of the social media pages. I know Facebook is so passe, so we're trying to get onto Instagram and TikTok and other things like that. But there is some hesitation about that social media for the older generation of witches who maybe are closeted. It is really super easy to be outed. And so if being outed is an issue for you, they stay off of social media. But the other thing I wanted to point out is the presence of how-to videos on YouTube that are done by, you know, I read a book, pagans, and we'd like to be able to counter that, or at least offer another perspective when we are able to finally start making YouTube videos worth watching.
Yes, 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 yes.
It's a learning curve. We're climbing the learning curve.
Well, the Moot has had, we've had learning curves too. But yes, we definitely need that. There is so much silly stuff that is out there. So much.
Yes.
So yes, we definitely have to counter that. Thank you.
And I want to
Well-
thank all of you for being here. It's been very pleasant and enjoyable. And I was anxious and now I'm not. So it's nice to make new friends.
Yay, wonderful. Did we have one more question? Did I hear somebody about to ask something?
Jim has his hand up.
Yeah. Didn't you say there was a membership officer, but there was a separate person who was the outreach officer?
That's correct. Yes.
Okay.
And it was part of their mandate that they were going to go help form new local councils, and they were going to do some traveling. And he's actually one of our younger members. He's just graduated from college, so I'm not sure of his exact age, but you know, I don't think he's yet 30, so he's young. And he wanted to go to college campuses and other venues that he knew that younger folks would be at, and he has a marketing plan for them.
Oh, wonderful. Ah. Well, again, that was absolutely wonderful. Thank you so much. We are finishing up our hour now. So,
We made it.
yay. Oh, well, thank you. And blessed be.
Blessed be everybody. Have a good night.
Kakama.
Blessed be, and thank you, Thea.
You're welcome, my friends. Good to see you again, Donald. Bye-bye, everybody.
Kakama.
Bye-bye.
Right,
Thank
Valerie?
you very much. I enjoyed it. Blessed be.